The vast majority of attention given to The Legend of Zelda nowadays is towards the 3D games. Your Ocarina and Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild, and whilst all of those games are golden, the flip side of the series is just as remarkable. Link's 2D adventures across Hyrule and other lands are without a doubt some of the best games out there, in some cases outranking the 3D titles if I do say so myself. But one thing that these 2D games lack is theories and just general coverage nowadays. I mean, compared to the 3D games anyway. So today, starting with my all-time favourite 2D Zelda game, the Minish Cap, we are going to take a look at 5 great, awesome and interesting theories and or mysteries within the game that you might not have known, as I want to give the 2D games more love and coverage as a creator. And hey, if you enjoy this video, be sure to let me know afterwards and I'll do more videos like this on the 2D games. Anyway, be sure to go and grab yourself a snack or drink and send them in on social media to get featured right here, and let's dive into some theories and mysteries in the Minish Cap that you might have not known. The Minish Cap takes place rather early in the Zelda timeline. In fact, it is only the second game in the timeline following Skyward Sword, so what we see in the events of the Minish Cap is actually the first ever chronological look at the established Kingdom of Hyrule, and man does it look fabulous. The game features 3 main races, the Hylians, Gorons, and all forms of the Minish. However, there is actually another race or group of people that exist in this time frame: the Wind Tribe. They can be found within the cloud tops, a suspended home within the sky which they have full control over as they are masters of the wind. We are given a small amount of backstory to them, in which we are told that they originally lived within what is now known as the Wind Ruins, but after gaining mastery of the wind, they migrated to the clouds and took the wind element with them. However, we don't know when exactly this migration was. It could have been prior to the events of the Minish Cap, or as far back as the events of Skyward Sword, or even further back, which is where the mystery truly begins. Who exactly are the Wind Tribe? Although they hold a resemblance to the average Hylian, they are much more. A notable trait of them is that they all have red hair, a colour similar to that of Groose from Skyward Sword, who, whilst being theorised to have a connection to Gerudo origin, could have a connection to the Wind Tribe in a sense. A notable similarity of the Wind Tribe and People of the Skies in Skyward Sword are that they both refer to Hyrule as the surface, as in Skyward Sword it was an unknown land to them, but that only makes sense for Skyward Sword. The Wind Tribe once lived on the surface, then migrated to the skies, but yet still refer to it as the surface. So they couldn't be from this current time frame, otherwise why wouldn't they just call it Hyrule? Now there are 2 possibilities here. One, following the events of Skyward Sword and establishment of Hyrule, a group of people learned the ways of the wind and found their way back to the skies. Or B, this group may actually originate from the pre-Skyward Sword era. As mentioned earlier, we don't actually know when they migrated to the skies, and considering the wind ruins are left in a very much ruined state, it isn't too hard to believe that this migration may have been hundreds of years ago. It is said in Skyward Sword that Hylia moved her people to the skies in protection from the emerging evil, but what we don't know is how she did this. I mean, I think it's generally considered that she sort of just lifted them all up, but when you think about it, that doesn't make that much sense. Perhaps what the Wind Tribe meant by they migrated is that the goddess Hylia taught them in a sense, or granted them abilities in the form of teaching. It's a bit of a rabbit hole to be honest with you, but the Wind Tribe are by far one of the most mysterious groups in Zelda when it comes to their origin. It is even believed that some of the cloud tops could be a similar home to Skyloft, as we know the open skies of Skyward Sword had many islands, floating rocks, and so much more. It isn't too hard to believe that somewhere out in that open sky was the Cloud Tops and Wind Tribe. Maybe they were just your average tribe prior to Skyward Sword, but became the Wind Tribe due to the move to the skies. And although there isn't much evidence for it, there is also a question of if these Cloud Tops that they live in eventually go on to become the city in the sky seen later in the series. But as for their origin, who knows? One of my favourite parts of this game is Castle Town, especially during the Picori Festival. The first ever chronological Castle Town is a fun, vibrant and lively settlement with a wide range of characters to meet and interact with. Not only that, but we get double the fun when exploring the town as a Minish, running through all the little nooks and crannies between the walls and structures around town. And whilst you'd think that there surely can't be anything wrong with this place, there sadly is. Inside the town Happy Hearth Inn, we can meet 3 travellers, Din, Farore, and Nehru. These free travelers are actually not just references to, but are intended to be the very same oracles from the Oracle games, as well as obviously being named after the free famed goddesses. They are part of a side quest in which, as travelers, they are looking to settle down into Castletown and are currently living at the inn. Link can do a couple of tasks around town along with some kinstone work in order to free up 2 homes for 2 of the travelers to move into. However, he cannot free up a 3rd home to complete the quest of housing all 3 travelers. Why is this? Well, a little bit of trivia for you. The Minish Cap was actually developed by Capcom and overseen by Nintendo, but Capcom also a few years earlier created Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, but that duo of games was originally intended to be a trilogy based on the oracles Din, Nehru, and Furore, named after the goddesses. Now, Seasons and Ages are based on both Din and Nehru, 2 of the 3, but what about Furore? Well, that 3rd game never came to be, leaving us with only 2 games of what was supposed to be a trilogy. This could actually be a very cleverly placed secret by the developers to hint at the fact that there was supposed to be 3 games for these 3, but only 2 were made. Now, I know that seems a little far-fetched, but this next point may just convince you. Whilst you can choose to house whichever of the 3 travelers you like, 2 of the homes that are made available both have a red and blue roof, the colours of Din and Nehru, the 2 which got a game, but there is no greenhouse roof made available for moving in. There is actually an empty plot of land within town, but no matter how far in the game you progress, this land can never be used to build a home. It is believed that this was originally planned to be for Furore. Okay, I'll stop that now. This renders one of the 3 travelers permanently without a home and stuck at the inn forever. As for the reason why, it remains a mystery. A relic that almost every Zelda fan can name is the Triforce. You know, the 3 triangles representing courage, wisdom and power. But what if I told you that there was actually a 4th piece that was intended to slot into the gap of the Triforce? And no, I am not talking about the infamous Tetraforce theory, rather the true purpose of the Light Force. Not to be confused with the Triforce, as it sometimes is though. During the introduction of the game, we are told that the Light Force, and whilst yes it does appear very similar to the Triforce, they are actually different things. The Light Force is represented by a single golden triangle, and it is said that combined with the Triforce, these 2 relics would grant unlimited power. But other than this, we don't know of or see any other correlation between the 2 divine relics. It was wrote in, whilst not the most reliable at times, Hyrule Historia, that the Light Force contains a large amount of life force found in living beings, similar to the Force Gems from Phantom Hourglass. So what happened to this magical Light Force? We never hear of it again following the Minish Cap. Well, whilst some believe that following the events of the Minish Cap, it slowly broke off into the many Force Gems seen in Phantom Hourglass, that likely isn't the case, as Force Gems may just exist due to the Ocean King, which is a whole other story in itself, but roll with this for now. What is commonly believed, however, is that the Light Force may actually just be another term for Princess Zelda's sealing powers. I mean, it would make sense as the image we see of the Light Force is of course being held by Princess Zelda. Now, as for the whole 4th piece of the Triforce, that could make sense in some way, but only if you were to say Princess Zelda holds 2 pieces of the Triforce, and one of which only she can hold, as her powers are passed down by blood. So yeah, the Light Force isn't really connected to the Triforce, but it is believed to be another name for Princess Zelda's hereditary abilities, which honestly, I can believe. The Hero of Men is a legendary hero mentioned in the introduction to the Minish Cap, similar to how the opening of the Wind Waker mentions the hero from Ocarina of Time, but that's a hero that we actually saw. The Hero of Men, however, is someone that we haven't actually seen at all, or have we? This legend is from a time before the Minish Cap, but after the events of Skyward Sword. They fought bravely in the War of the Burned Chest, saving Hyrule from evil. Obviously, this is implied to be an incarnation of Link. I mean, just look at the design. But it's a Link that we haven't seen yet, and as awesome as a potential game covering this hero to see them for the first time would be, we might actually see them in the Minish Cap. Throughout the game, Link can learn new combat techniques for the help of the Blade Brothers. They can be found all across the land and will teach Link a new move to aid him in combat, but after collecting 7 Tiger Scrolls, the rewards for learning each new move, he can learn the move taught by Swiftblade the First, a ghost who can be found below the graveyard in Castor Wilds. Out of all of the Blade brothers, he's the only one not alive. Swiftblade has passed on to be a spirit, but is still able to teach Link after he obtains the 7 scrolls, but he isn't any ordinary bladesman. He says some interesting things, such as, "Though my body may perish, I am still the true Master Swordsman of Hyrule," and "I will teach you skills that are out of this world." He is clearly someone of significance, but what's really interesting is the move he teaches, the Great Spin Attack. He describes it as a technique that only he has mastered, and this is correct, but also mentions that it can only be learned by one who holds the Sacred Blade. Link himself obviously has the Sacred Blade as he is the hero, but if only one who carries the blade can learn it, then that must mean Swiftblade the First once wielded this blade. All of the other brothers claim to be the best swordsman around, but the fact is that Swiftblade is the true leader here, as he is without a doubt the spirit of the hero of men. It's never explicitly said, but it makes sense and wouldn't be the only occurrence of a past hero returning as a spirit to teach the current hero. We see in Twilight Princess the hero's Shade appear in the form of a spirit like Bean. The Shade is actually the very same Link from Ocarina of Time, teaching the current Link, and that is exactly what Swiftblade the First is doing. He claims to be Hyrule's greatest swordsman, and he knows a move that only those who have carried the Sacred Blade can learn, and considering he's not the hero of the skies, the other hero before the Minish Cap, it would just make sense for Swiftblade to be the hero of men. A hero who fought long ago to save Hyrule from evil. A hero who we've never truly seen. But we really have. One of the things that makes the Minish Cap so amazing and honestly unique, aside from Eslo and the entire concept of shrinking down to the size of a Minish, Kinstone fusing, or literally any of the music, it would be Vaati. Vaati? The protagonist of the game. It's refreshing every now and then not to be fighting Ganondorf or Ganonport, and Vaati is a great example of this. They are an evil sorcerer who was once on the light side, but learnt the powers of the dark side and evil magic, and transformed himself into an unpredictably strong villain. Whilst having Minish origin, the true origin of Vaati has been questioned. Unlike the rest of the Minish people, Vaati has red eyes and pale skin, a trait not possessed by the average Minish. If we look closely at the artwork for Vaati, we can also see a very unique detail surrounding the eye. Look familiar? This is of course actually a simplistic take on the drip below the Sheikah eye symbol, and has led many to believe that Vaati may have some sort of Sheikah blood within him, but how? To match, he also has red eyes, which is a trait that all Sheikah have. You could say that his transformation caused this, as he was once pure and in the light, but even then he still had this pale skin and red eyes. The pale skin isn't exactly a Sheikah trait, but it's far from a Minish one either. The red eyes and little symbols surrounding them is what does it for me. Vaati must have some sort of Sheikah connection, but it's a question of what is the connection? The immediate thought for me would be one of his parents was Sheikah, but considering the size of a Minish and size of a Sheikah, I don't think so. Where is this Sheikah influence coming from? We see during the boss fight with Vaati that when he transforms into his other forms, they are literally large Sheikah based eyes, including the 3 lashes above the eye as well. This is no coincidence. It is said that he was always interested in the evil that one can possess, but even that doesn't give us an answer. It's a difficult one to answer, to be honest, and I think that this may remain a mystery, but that's part of what makes the mystery all the more interesting, right? Why and how does Vaati have strong Sheikah traits? That is one of the Minish Cap's greatest mysteries. Thanks a ton for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed, and if you did, be sure to drop a like and consider subscribing for more Zelda content. What did you think of these theories and mysteries within the Minish Cap? It is honestly my all-time favourite 2D Zelda game, and I feel that it is criminally underrated. And if you have any theories of your own on the game, I'd love to hear them. Leave a comment below, and look out for my replies. A huge special heartfelt thank you goes out to all of my supporters across Patreon and YouTube. I can never thank you guys enough for their generous support in allowing me to make these videos. And special mention to our new supporter, Ricola. I hope I pronounced that right, by the way. Thank you all so much, and if you'd like to help support my work here and get your name featured at the end of all of my videos and more, then consider supporting via Patreon or YouTube. Again, thanks for watching, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Gamer.